Welcome to episode 48 of Superhost Down Under. This week we have Sarah as our guest. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Silvia.
And before we get deeper into your story, we're going to do our weekly topic. Sylvia, what is our topic for this week?
Well, it's about linens, hiring linens versus having your own linens, because it's always an interesting topic and costs are very relevant in a situation like this.
Absolutely. So for me, I have it set up with my co-host that as an owner, I buy multiple sets of linens. And the cleaners, when they come in, they bring a new set of linens and then they take the dirty ones away. And so there's always a spare set in case, delays in washing. But what that means is I take on all the risk with like damages. So if there's like any stains that we can't remove or any like tears in the sheets, then we go back to air cover or the guests and we have to claim for damages, which is quite irritating. So one of the things that I'm discussing with my co-host is to move towards a linen service, because if we have a high grade hotel quality linen, I think that's good enough for our guests. Like they don't need specific colors, they don't need specific materials. If it's hotel quality, I think it's good enough for them. But then also for my co-host, then it's interchangeable across their like 18 plus properties. So like most of our beds are queen size beds for our guests. So it's not like, oh, that's for that owner and they don't need to create all this filing system in their storage for their all the hosts that they're hosting. So that's what we're moving towards. And it also takes away the linen service. I don't think they charge you the same for replacement or like damages or stains. Like it's just part of the fees that they charge you because they're the ones buying the linens and replenishing them. When they get worn out, they just replace them. So for me, that's something that I'm gonna venture into. But I was gonna see what you guys think about using a linen service, because when I was hosting even a shared home, I kept doing linens and linens drove me crazy. Like I'm always washing and drying linens, especially have a few check-in check-outs in the same week. You're just constantly washing your Duna covers, flat sheets, fitted sheets, pillowcases, and then you have a spare set. What do
Towels.
towels, all those things. And with a linen service, they give you just the full set, folded. You take them out, you put them in, you fit it, and some of them are pressed. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Sarah, you go first. What's your view on
Oh,
this?
well, I haven't used a linen service, only in emergencies. So I've got two properties. One is in the city in Melbourne, and I have a cleaner who does the linen as part of the clean process. And we have a few sets of linens. We actually just keep them in the property because they're just in a drawer there. We only have the one property in Melbourne, and she only does my property. So it's not like we're managing lots of different properties and sizes and all that sort of thing. Mind you, in both of my properties, I have multiple bed sizes, which when you were talking about it, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
why do I do this? So our other property, which is
Yeah.
relatively remote on the Great Ocean Road, the cleaner actually does have a linen service. It is available to us, but you hire it by the day. So if you want to make your bed and your house up, say a week before your guests arrive, you're paying for the linen to sit on the bed while no one's using it. Like it's a really weird kind of service. So it's not really a service at all when it's like it's a 20-minute drive away to the laundry. So totally impractical for us.
Mhm.
But I also, when you were
Yeah.
talking about bed sizes in our house on the Great Ocean Road, we have splittable king beds. And one of them, I actually managed to get the bed
Mhm.
size wrong when I bought it. And so it's a super king. So in fact, we have like two king singles, one super king, one king size bed, two king like long singles. We also have a double sofa bed. So honestly, the linen is a nightmare, but we have it all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's time to consolidate those mattresses and then
Oh
bed
yeah, yeah,
frames.
yeah, yeah. But it is
How do
it
you
is it is great to be able to split the beds though, because it means you can
suitable?
have two couples or you can have families, you can have groups of singles.
Mhm.
It's actually really worth it.
I
Flexible.
have I have a question there. Like we used to wash the linens while we're like the first thing you do is strip the bed and then you start washing the linens. But it doesn't wash and dry within the
Mm.
turnover of the property. Like I have a studio apartment. So if you're stripping the queen size bed linens and you're putting in the wash, even though it's an all-in-one washer and dryer, that's 3 hours.
Oh
And so
yeah.
then if you leave the property, you've got like pretty dry but not completely bone dry linens in like all wrinkled up in a washer dryer. And you don't, even if you're doing a 1 hour wash, you're not cleaning for 1 hour a one bedroom. And so then who comes back to take it out and dry it or like fold it and put it back in storage? That's why we strip it and take it, because the time it takes to wash and dry is much longer than the switch over.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do the same pretty much. But one thing that I do sometimes do here at the beach house is with the towels, sometimes I'll wash them here and then I'll hang them out in the house, and like we come back a week later and they're dry, just because it's easier than dragging them
Yes.
back to Melbourne and dragging them back here and whatever. But so we do a bit of a mixture of both. But sometimes I do find myself lying in bed awake thinking about linen configurations, and then you're in trouble.
Yeah,
Like, how many of those sheets do I
that's a
need, and
real
are those
problem.
clean? And like, and can I get them back to
Hmm.
the house in time for this next booking? And like, once your head starts going down that rabbit hole, it's there's no sleep to be had.
Because you need multiple sets for each bed size in case like you
Mm.
Mm,
have your king singles, and then if it tears or stains, you need to have an extra
mm,
set ready so that you can switch it. And then yeah, you can't just use one set, so
no,
then you
no,
need
no.
like two or three of each one. Which is,
Fortunately,
and
I
I used to
guess.
have shelves for each, like for the towels.
Fortunately, my cleaner always says to me, if you ever get stuck and I have to come in, and she has, I think once she's come in and just given me hired linen, and we've just paid for that. So, if we're
Mm,
ever really stuck, we have that as an
mm.
option. But yeah, there's a lot of thinking about, what size do I need for this booking, and, all of that.
How about you,
And
Sylvia? I know you
yeah.
do you most all your cleaning, and what linens do you feel the same about linens?
Well, again, listening to hosts that have entire places for guests, it's so much easier for me. So mine being the shared scenario, a shared home. So with me, it depends on what time the guest has just left and the next guest is coming in. So then I make the call on whether I've got time to wash, dry, and put those same sheets back on. Usually I don't, because I have guests coming back to back. But say, for example, one leaves on a very early flight and the other one's arriving at night, which does happen. Then I've got the time during the day to wash and dry, and then I put the same sheets on. But
Hmm.
otherwise, I keep an extra set. And so if there's not enough time, then I've got those to put on. And then I don't have to rush the other set off the property because it is a shared home. So I just, get them to dry at their own pace. My bed is a queen bed. The guest bed is a double bed. So I do have different sets of sheets, but it's fairly obvious which are mine and which are for the guests, for me, in my cupboard. So that's what I say. Being in a shared situation, it's a lot easier to manage than what most people do, which is the entire home.
Mm, for sure. All right. Well, let's get into your story, Sarah.
Yeah.
My understanding is you're a filmmaker and disability activist. For me,
I
that's two
am.
very different fields.
Well, no, I've managed to combine. I've managed to combine them both into one. So, um, look, I have a daughter who has a
Yeah.
disability, but I was making films long before she was born, and I was actually making films about disability before she
Mhm.
was born. So when it became obvious
Oh,
that
wow.
she had a disability, it was like, oh well, I should combine the two things, and spend my
Mm.
time, using filmmaking to advocate for the rights and inclusion of people with disabilities. So that's kind of what I do, which means my career has not actually been stellar because, there's been growing but limited interest in stories around disability. But I still make good films, and yeah, and I sort of
Really?
do it in
I think it's
amongst
quite
all of them.
interesting.
Yeah, look,
I think it's a really interesting area.
Yeah. Well,
Fun.
it is for me. So, and one of the things we've tried to do, particularly with this property on the Great Ocean Road at Wye River, is have disability, like wheelchair friendly access. And it's a really hilly town. It's a town that's not notorious for being flat, like a lot of Victorian beach towns, but we've got a property that's got step-free entrance, and all the living is on one level, and then we have a little bit more accommodation downstairs as well, so you can have more people than, say, just your wheelchair user who can sort of be up in the kitchen, bathroom, laundry, wherever they need to be. It's all wheelchair friendly. So yeah, that's a bit of a draw card, and we have had a handful of bookings that where people have really been attracted by the fact that it's, you know, step free and level house.
Mm. It's probably made you a lot more aware on what to do to have a home that's catered for disabilities.
Oh yeah, but you know, we still have
Yeah.
things where sometimes that someone, like a friend of mine who I knew her impairment, and you know, she'd booked my place and was coming down, and then like halfway through the week I thought to myself, oh, all the plates and crockery and everything are up really high, you know, like she's not going to be able to reach them. But luckily she was with her partner, and you know, they were able to reach the crockery. Like, it wasn't a big catastrophe, but it was just one of those things where I thought, oh, gee, you know, it's a bit more than just having, you know, a step-free entry and that sort of thing. So, and also there's really no such thing as universal access. So one person's access is another person's barrier. You can't make it work for absolutely everybody. All you can do is just try and remove as many barriers as possible, you know?
It's interesting that you say that, because I listed mine as, this was some time ago, as being suitable for someone in a wheelchair. And then I got a booking request, and he wanted to come and check it out before he came, which was fine. And where I thought, you know, our building is designed so that you can get in with a wheelchair. There's a lift. It's all flat. There are stairs at the front, but they've actually got a little sort of ramp that someone in a wheelchair can come around, use the lift. It's all flat. But when he came into my apartment, what surprised me is that the turning circle of the wheelchair from the hallway to the bathroom was not sufficient. And I never, ever imagined that, because I knew that the width of the doors were fine, but the turning circle wasn't.
That's
So
too tight.
Yeah.
well,
so
it didn't even occur to me.
Well, look, you know, a little
So I
flat
took
that
that off.
Yeah, the flat that we have in Melbourne, it is a ground floor flat, but the bathroom is really pokey, and there's a little corridor to the bedrooms, and really, I have had a couple of people inquire about wheelchair access, and I've said, look, really, you know, you could probably get in, but you won't be that comfortable actually living in the place. Unless, I mean, some people who use wheelchairs actually walk around the house, like walk a bit. My daughter walks around the house. She doesn't use her wheelchair in the house, but she uses it out in the community. So that's what I mean. Like, you've really got to understand each individual person's impairment. You know, some people need, you know, a wheelchair in the shower, and like we have a really nice chair that we put in the shower. So for if a disabled person needs a chair to have a shower, they've got like a stylish chair. None of the access features in our beach house look like access features. They look like architectural features. So we pride ourselves in that, because that's always refreshing as well. So, but look, I'm pretty confident and comfortable. I've worked with loads and loads of disabled people, and so I'm not like nervous about asking, and I can explain what the places do and don't do in terms of access features and that sort of thing. So yeah, when people come, they usually have a couple of questions, and I'm pretty comfortable answering those. I mean, other people with less experience might not know, but I also noticed that the Airbnb standard for putting, you know, listing your place as accessible, there's all these photos you have to send in, and they actually, like, you have to show a photograph of a tape measure in your doorway to show how wide it is, and there's a lot of things that they do to actually check that it genuinely is wheelchair accessible. So yeah, that's it's kind of helpful, but also quite
That's
rigorous.
good.
Yeah.
So what got you? Go on to it.
Oh, just so I've had a look at the photos of your beach house, and it just looks beautiful. With your city pad, is that connected to your main house? Is it?
Sort of not. So it's a property that actually is. It's sort of adjacent to our home, but you can't get to it from our house. It's around the corner, and we sort of
Private
bought.
entrance?
Well, yeah, it's actually a dual occupancy property, and my cousin actually lives in the front house, and she helps with the cleaning and the looking after the apartment at the back, and she chats to the guests, and often she'll see them and I don't see them, but I just live around the corner, so it's all very sort of convenient and cozy, and I do all of the hosting and management of the bookings and everything, and I just let her know when it needs cleaning and tidying up and whatever. So but the thing with our little apartment, it's really nice because it's like a ground floor garden flat, but I try and be really careful not to sell it as something it's not, because it's like we've got nice furniture, we've got really comfy beds. The bathroom is old, it's clean, but it's old, and we are not renovating. I've looked at renovating it and it's so expensive. Our plan for the property in the next couple of years is probably to demolish what is the Airbnb. So we really can't be spending big money on, renovating the kitchen and the bathroom and that sort of thing. So I've sort of made it pretty clear through the photos. You can see that it's like it's an older style apartment, but we've made it really sort of clean and comfy, and we price it accordingly. It's under $200 a night, except for times like the Grand Prix and the the Ashes cricket's coming up, and you boost the prices a little bit when those things are on, because it's really, really close to Chapel Street, really close to Windsor Station. The location is, I don't think anyone's given us less than 5 stars for location. But I try and be really open about the fact that it's not like a brand new glamorous place with a sparkling, sort of modern bathroom, and it's got its own sort of character and charm. But a lot of people really love the fact that they can just open the door and sit in the garden. That's quite nice. So it's just a little courtyard, but it's very leafy, lots of plants. It's just it's just an ordinary kind of place in a great location.
What got you into starting short-term rentals?
Look,
from filmmaking and advocating for disabilities?
It's really just been about our life, like just having this property while we're waiting to do what we want to do to the property. It was like, well, we should just put it on Airbnb, and also I was able to offer it to my family member to live in the front house. I was able to offer that to her at a price that was more affordable than she could find anywhere else, in exchange for helping with the Airbnb. And we, between the two properties, like the flat and the house, we probably make what we would make in long-term rental. But it was really all about just taking an opportunity to do something to make a bit of money out of properties that we were really already sort of invested in. Like this beach house, it's our beach house. We spend a lot of time here. We come here whenever we can, which of course plays havoc with the short-term rental bookings, because it's like, oh, I don't want to make it available that weekend, I want to come down. So we often have it booked for ourselves in really peak times. It was funny actually, over Easter I had quite a high price on it for Easter, in the hope that if someone was going to pay that price, they could have it. But if they weren't going to pay that ridiculous price, we were going to spend Easter at the beach house. So anyway, it didn't book, and we came down on like the Thursday night or something. We're just sitting down relaxing, and I get this ping from Airbnb, a booking, would you accept, like a lot less per night? And I just kind of went, yeah. And I realised I hadn't actually blocked it out. I'd been leaving it open till the very last minute, hoping that someone was going to be crazy enough to pay for it. But but we were already here. There was no way I was turning around and going back home again. So so really, like, I didn't kind of set out to go, oh, I'm going to buy an investment property and put it on short-term rental. It's more like, okay, we've got these properties. certainly with the beach house, it's about covering the costs of ownership and things like land tax and rates and, overheads and everything. It's just like, can you make a bit of money out of it just to cover those costs? And also, I mean, my husband's an architect and we've built this beautiful house, and there's a part of me that's like, well, when we're not using it, really, other people should be able to enjoy it because it's gorgeous and everyone who stays here just loves it. And it's like,
It is.
why would you build something to just leave it empty, So, that's it, but it's really not about, for us, it's not about, yes, we like making money. Everyone likes making money, but it's really about just maximising things that we have, like his apartment in the city is about how do we kind of manage that property and make it work for everybody. And the chance for some, a family member to have a house to live in that they can afford, because rentals in Melbourne are, hopeless. It's not a business thing. It's more of just, this is our lives. How do we kind of make it work?
And you talked about how your work in disability, being an activist, has shaped your design or how you've set up your place to be accessible for your guests. How has the filmmaking side of it affected the design and the theme that you have in your places?
Don't know that it really has. I think, my husband's an architect, so he's kind of the boss of design, and he, has pretty much, had free reign, really. Yeah. And I tend to do the soft furnishings, the cushions and the linen and all of that sort of stuff, because he's not really that interested in that level of detail. But in terms of he's actually made a lot of the furniture that's in the house. So, he's made like this lovely L-shaped lovely sofa and a beautiful dining table. And there's another piece, like a little sideboard thing that's downstairs. Quite a few pieces of furniture. Oh, and we've just put in this incredibly gorgeous leather daybed, which he made and got upholstered, and he didn't do the upholstery, but so like really nice. I want to see
this one.
Really nice, like handmade pieces of furniture that just make the place just feel, I don't know, unique and lovely. And it's really just his way of, like, he just loves doing that kind of stuff. And I'm all for encouraging that in a husband,
I think it's really great that you design unique pieces for the space because you're enjoying it too. One thing I worry about, and for my own places, there's very few pieces. I put the only thing that's bespoke is my handmade pottery that I threw during COVID, and I think I'm happy to show my pottery there because I don't want to see the pottery I made during COVID. So if it gets damaged, it's fine. But I would be nervous putting, for example, I have an 1850s like vintage like falcon chair from Norway, and I moved it out of my Airbnb because there's no way I'd let this delicate chair be in this space that like is no longer made, like it's right next to me. How do you protect these unique pieces that have been like handmade by your husband, or do you have a different view of how you frame it? Because I'd be
Well,
nervous with damages, and then it's custom made. So have you had any issues?
look, no. The short answer is no. I find really
Good.
we
Yeah.
haven't had we even in both properties. We've had some funny, like when we first started doing the city property, we had a few single Saturday nights, and that was, I very quickly learned no single nights on a Saturday night. That was, especially off Chapel Street, that was a bad idea. But generally speaking,
No last minute bookings on Chapel Street. No.
nah. But
No.
generally speaking, sometimes some people are messy, some people don't put the rubbish out, whatever, but very little actual damage in either of
That's
the
not damage,
properties.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel
Mhm.
like, like I feel like there might have been a little bit of damage on our kitchen bench here, but I look at it and kind of go, I could have done that too. Like, it's not like I've walked in and gone, oh my God, the guests have damaged the bench, because it could have been me, like, and the furniture that my husband's made, most of it's quite sturdy, and I mean, people don't kind of set out to like damage things. Sometimes they have an accident, like something accidentally happens. And I feel like occasionally, sometimes when I come in here and I know that I can tell there's been a family, I come straight in after the guests, and I sometimes have a couple of hours where I start rearranging things and just reclaiming the space. And I remember we had some guests where, they had left quite a lot of mess and kind of yuckiness, of like just rubbish, but no damage. But I remember that feeling of like, I just wanted to reclaim it. But I got over it and I'm getting better at it, So we
Do
have
you
got...
wave some sage around?
Yeah. But
Do you burn some sage?
no, I don't do that, but that's a good idea. I should. But
I have some.
yeah. I have some in the garden. I eat it, but burning it.
Yeah, with
But
some lavender like wrapped into it. Yeah.
yeah. But look, I try not to kind of fret too much about it, and touch wood. Like I'm just going to touch my coffee table, but touch wood. It's been okay. It's been fine. Yeah. And we have
Okay.
insurance as well, so
Great.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, insurance for short-term rentals is really important. And while you're traveling between the properties, tell us a little bit about the team that supports you. You talked about some cleaners and the lint. Like who are the people that help you keep these two properties running smoothly?
Yeah. So, look, I'm pretty hands-on as a host myself. So one of the things I do, and I think it's the thing that makes a super host, and it comes from my filmmaking background, is just being very attentive. And, I don't let messages sit there for a long time unless they arrive at 1 a.m. But, I'm going to ignore my phone overnight. But I'm attentive to messages. I'm attentive to hosts. They've got my to guests rather. They've got my number. There's always a sense that they can get in touch with me. But then in Wye River, I've got my cleaner who just lives 15 minutes drive away, which I think is really important. And I know that she would come if there was an emergency. Of course, we have backup keys. I don't necessarily sort of mention them up front, but there's ways that people can get into the property if the main electronic key doesn't work for some reason. It never has been a problem, but yeah, that's always the thing. But also, I'm really lucky here. I've got a really close friend of mine who lives very close to the house, like just up the road. And she actually is a property manager herself, and I get lots of tips from her. So she doesn't manage my property, but we absolutely share a lot of ideas, and she's a super host as well. But she manages about 11 properties in Wye River, and there's probably only like 200 properties here, so yeah, and I know that like in the worst case scenario, she is also around, if something were to happen, that needed somebody on site. I think if I didn't have anybody in a town like Wye River that I could call on, that would be a little bit scary, I think, to have a holiday rental in a town where there wasn't someone nearby. Especially, things like in summertime, it's a bush, like 10 years ago, we had a huge bushfire here. So, in summertime, you have to make sure that your guests are safe as well, and that they understand, there's things that people don't understand about, bushfire risk, or some even like we've got a wood fire in the house. Some people don't know how to light fires, like it's like we have other heating as well, but, yeah. So
Oh, I like
certainly,
that.
certainly at Wye River, having a couple of people on the ground that I can call on if I need them is absolutely vital. And then in Melbourne, like I'm just around the corner, and and then my cousin's on site as well, so we're just there, And it's funny, because a funny story. A couple of weeks ago, my daughter was in hospital having some quite serious surgery, and it was a Friday night, and she's
Oh,
fine
sorry.
now. Everything's good now. But on this particular Friday night, I had some guests. So my guests always need to, when they come to stay at the Melbourne property, there's two questions I have for them. One is I need an email address so I can send the electronic key. And the second thing is I ask them if they want to use the parking in the driveway, because my cousin has a parking permit and she can park in the street. and it saves me having to give guests parking permits, which they will inevitably lose or take with them or whatever. So we have a driveway, and they're entitled to use it, but if they don't want it, I need to know, or if they do want it, I need to know. So I have these two questions, and there's a lot of guests who never answer those two questions until I remind them or whatever. So on this one Friday, my daughter was in hospital, and I had guests arriving, and I'd sent them the follow-up email, which is, where's your email address so I can give you the key, and do you need the driveway? Silence, nothing. But so, of course, I go into another zone of completely not thinking about being an Airbnb superhost because I've got other things going on in my life. And I get home at 11:30 or something after this hospital thing, and suddenly I'm about to go to bed, and the guests text me and they say, where's the parking spot? Where's the driveway? And where's the parking? And it's like nearly midnight, and I'm like deranged with tiredness, and I'd completely forgotten that they'd never turned up, And where's the parking? And I said, oh, it's the driveway next to the house. And they send me a photo of a house that is not my house. And I look at it for a minute in my tired, deranged, space. And I look at it and go, that's not my house. And it takes me a couple of minutes to figure out that they're in the wrong suburb. Same street name, but different suburb.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Was it close by?
No, it was half an hour away. They were in Essendon and we're in Windsor,
no. Didn't they know which area they were booking?
I don't know what they knew.
Didn't
and what
they know what
didn't
area they were booking? Wow.
I don't know.
I've got a host friend of mine who says that when guests don't respond and you're trying to make sure they have a smooth check-in so you ask them questions such as you've said, and they don't respond and then suddenly they're there and they're like, oh, we're here now, how do we get in? And it's like, well, I tried to organise this also so you would have all the information and it's funny, different priorities.
This was a classic one of those, but it was so when they were in the wrong suburb half an hour away, it was 5 to 12 at night, and I had just had a hell of a day. I wasn't going to tell them what was going on in my life because really, it didn't need to be said. But I think sometimes guests perhaps could think about the fact that a host is someone who's doing this as part of their larger life. They're not a concierge in a hotel who's paid to be there. And there are times when, the host has other things on their mind. So I just had completely lost sight of the fact that these people had never turned up, and anyway, so I got back to them and I said, look, you're in the wrong suburb. Here's the proper address. Get here. There's the, key, whatever. I said, and I'm going to bed, so you won't be able to contact me. But of course, then they, I think they sent me messages in the middle of the night. There was a message at 2:30. Oh, that's right. There was a message at 2:30 saying, my friend had a 15-minute shower and now there's no hot water left. And it's like, is it continuous? It's like, no, it's not continuous. And 15 minutes in Australia is too long for a shower. Anyway, that's enough of crazy guests that sometimes do unexpected things.
What have you noticed being in your Great Ocean Road property being the maintenance that's being required because it's a larger property, it's near the water or closer to the water than your city place?
Yes.
I used to live on the Gold Coast, so I know.
So our property doesn't have sea views; it has forest views. So you can walk down to the beach. It's 10-minute walk down the hill and then up again. But we have really beautiful forest views, and you can't see any other houses. So that's the real draw card of the place. But the thing that I'm still struggling with, and my cleaner has said that she will do it and she can do it, so I'm waiting for her to do it. But we do have quite a lot of cobwebs on the outside of the building. And you can't hose them off because cobwebs just laugh at water. They just they get wet and then they dry and then they're still there, So you have to kind of brush them off. And the property's quite a long way off the ground, and the pole that you would need to brush the cobwebs off the upper. So I'm still a little bit not quite sure how to, get the cobwebs sorted out. And then another really small thing that happened last week when I was here, I noticed I was working. So we've got our own tank water. So rainwater we collect it off the roof and it's in the tanks. And so when we leave the property, we turn the water off in case something happened, like you wouldn't want to lose all your tank water. And what I noticed when I was here was the pump was going on and off at nighttime. And I was like, just, like it's just going on every, 20, 25 minutes or so. It would just go on for a minute or something, and then it would go off again. I thought that's really weird. And what it was one of the toilets was just dripping a little tiny bit. And, the water was dripping. And so the cistern level was going down and was topping it up. And it was like, you can't ignore that, because that's, an entire summer's worth of water potentially going down the drain. That's the kind of thing you can't ignore. So, yeah. But just people to understand when you're on tank water that, obviously we've got a septic system that deals with the waste, and you can't put anything other than, toilet paper down in the toilet. And also we have a filter on the kitchen tap. The other taps, all the water's perfectly fine to drink, but sometimes it can be a little bit discoloured, not badly, but it's rainwater, it's beautiful water. So, but you can't have like 15-minute showers. You're not allowed. So we have little signs around saying, please remember that we voted on tank water.
Yeah. I think what are some of the lessons that you've learned managing a city and a coastal property that you wish someone told you
Well, I
before you
mentioned,
started?
yeah. So I mentioned the Saturday nights in the city, like, single night, Saturday night, you just know it's just going to be parties and loud, like just loud. So we have a two night minimum. And that seems to have just completely got rid of the kind of crazy Saturday nights that when we were first doing it, we would have lots of people book it and it'd crash and they'd get home at 4 a.m. and it was all just mayhem. So that's definitely a learning. Look, the thing I think I'm still really learning is how to get the pricing right. I think the prices are quite soft at the moment.
Yeah, we were talking about this before.
Yeah. I think pricing, I think in the city I could be a bit more proactive. I think I've been a bit lazy and allowed the place to sit vacant a bit more than I should. But just, look, it's also, sometimes I just can't be bothered dealing with it. So I'm not kind of that hungry for the bookings that I kind of will drop the price hugely. And certainly here at Wye River, I'm reluctant to drop it too much. But Wye River's a funny one. People tend to book a fair way in advance. We don't get a lot of last minute bookings, and there's a point below which I'm not prepared to go. I think I'd rather have it empty than be really sort of selling it off super cheap. So, but I still just feel like I haven't quite mastered that side of it. And sometimes you just sort of think, I should be able to get more than this, but you sort of can't,
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit out of the way, so people have to plan to go there.
I think you're right.
It's not so spontaneous. I used to have all my Saturday night, this is in the beginning, I used to have because I allowed one single night stays, I used to have all my Saturday nights booked in advance. Mm-hmm. And then I realised it was because everyone else had their Saturday night at a higher price. So what that would mean is I couldn't get a week's booking or a month's booking because all my Saturday nights were booked in advance. So then I had to do what everyone else does, and I had to put a higher price on my Saturday night. And that stopped that from happening, so that people weren't booking just my Saturday night.
I think that's what I found in the beginning.
Yeah. No, I don't have 2-night booking.
No, or you could.
Yes, or I could. But do you know what else is interesting? When I first started, and this is 11 years ago, up until about 5 years ago, I would get a lot of single nights. Not a lot, but I would get a scattering of single nights. I don't now. And I certainly allow it. I get people book at least 2 nights with me. Occasionally I get the single night, but that pattern has changed. It's just interesting watching the different patterns.
Mm.
I agree. I think we were speaking before we started, Sarah and I were chatting. I think this year I've noticed a shift in the economy, and I think it comes through in different. I'm I'm pretty like math science based, but this is a
Mm.
gut, something I just feel in my gut from probably a lot of different signals now that I'm like older, is many of my friends have lost their jobs, like made redundant, but then they also had to apply for new jobs, and I see the challenges with getting new jobs. It's not impossible, but it's not quick. Like it's not a shortage of workers. There's shortage of jobs, and then I work in different businesses where I see that businesses are discounting their products in order to get enough people in their seats and into their venue. And so you shouldn't have to discount when people have a lot of dispensable income and they're all wanting to go and spend money. Restaurants, like events, I see discounting, and I think there's fewer people spending on extra things beyond their necessities. And I see that with like trips. And so a lot of my guests, I think the demographic also is shifting. I mean, I don't collect all this data, but I wish I have, and I probably can go back, is that a lot of my guests are international guests still.
Mhm.
So I have very few local guests or domestic guests. And I think the domestic guests actually have been more than often the ones who negotiate for a lower price. They're like, I'm doing this trip, it's out of my budget. Are you willing to lower it? And depending on if it's a popular weekend or if like I think if there's enough lead time, I might just say no. Or if no one else is interested, I would agree to it. But I feel like there is a shift in the local economy, which is why our interest rates are being lowered to like stimulate the growth. But I do feel like spending habits are changing, and so it's a different way we need to tackle it, I think. And for that reason, for single nights, like Sylvia, like I wouldn't go, like if I'm going away and I'm coming to Sydney in December, I'm spending more nights and I'm also staying at a friend's place. Versus like probably a year ago, I probably would make a short trip, just be like, I'm gonna spend a night or two, maybe just one night in Sydney, and then I can go to my next location. But I'm not doing those trips anymore. And if I'm doing a few day trip, I'm going to like find ways to save money
Mm.
on the flights. I can fly during a weekday. I'm gonna like try to save some because it just feels like the economy has shifted a little bit this year in
I
many different areas. Do you see that in your work, Sarah, and like your filmmaking?
Oh, absolutely. With the filmmaking has, this past year for me has been really quiet. Um,
Mm,
I mean, I've sort of had other things going on, but yeah, it's definitely been quiet, and I think the economy is, it's harder than ever to get good, funding for things and whatever. But what I've really noticed,
mm,
our little place off Chapel Street, we used to get a lot of people would so a couple of years ago when we first started, we would get a lot of like 3 week bookings. I remember there were a couple of girls came and stayed for 3 weeks. They were vets and they were working in the local vet. They'd arrived from Ireland and they couldn't find anywhere to live, so they moved into our place for 3 weeks, which was great for
mm,
us. And we had lots of bookings of people who were coming to Melbourne but they couldn't get a rental, so they would come and stay with us for a few weeks while they looked for something. And that used to keep us going through winter. Like, it was brilliant because, obviously they were paying a lot more
mhm,
than, long-term rental with us. And it was we had a couple of great winters with that going on. And this year there's been none of it. And I think probably the
mhm,
long-term rental market has eased a bit. There's probably fewer people coming.
mhm,
And people are actually able to find a rental more readily. So there were kind of signs in the economy a couple of years ago, last year and the year before, where there were other things that were not going well, so we were benefiting from that. And I feel like now that's kind of all dried up. And look, I mean, one of the good things was I had a friend who was temporarily homeless, and I was able to let her go into our Airbnb for a few weeks, because it was just empty. We just had weeks and weeks of nothing. But at the same time, I wasn't really aggressively kind of going, what do I need to do to fill this? I wasn't worrying about it, you know. It was just like, oh, it's empty, you know. Like it's like I probably should have done something about it, but I was a bit, you know, preoccupied doing other stuff, and it was just like, you know. It's not like I don't have a mortgage to pay and that sort of thing. So it's just like if it's empty, it's like, oh, okay, that's no good. But it's taken us a lot longer to cover the expenses this year and to kind of get the kind of income that we had in previous years. And as for putting the price up, oh my God, no, like no way, you know. So
You don't feel you could.
No, I don't.
When
I
I
mean,
get asked, when I get asked if I would discount their stay, my answer is no, because I'm quite well booked up. But to be polite, what I say is, let's say it's a 4-night booking and they're asking for a discount. I say, yes, I do discount, but it's at a minimum of 7 nights. And that seems to be diplomatic enough that they don't take offence, and they then still go ahead and book. But I don't give discounts. I mean,
yeah.
mine is well priced, so I don't see that. Some people just try it. It's not that they can't afford it. They just try it, and I'm not blaming them.
Yeah.
You know,
Look,
they're just wanting to see if they can get it at a cheaper price.
And look, our little place. I mean, one of the things I think people love about our place is it's 2 bedrooms. So if there's 2 single people, they may not want to share a hotel room, but if you've got a 2-bedroom Airbnb, it's just a bit more comfortable, you know. So we get lots of, you know, two single people coming. I mean, we've got a queen size and a double bed, so you could have couple with a child, 2 single people. Sometimes at a squeeze we fit 4 in. The double bed's a bit small for that, but people are welcome to, you know, we take 4 people. But you know, I think that makes it better for people rather than a hotel. So, and also we have a lot of older parents who have adult kids that live nearby, and their houses are too small to have the parents stay in the house. So they stay with us and then walk around the corner to visit the kids. And that's, you know, that's a pretty big part of our
get a
bookings
lot
as well.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. And that's inner city living, isn't it?
Yeah. Where are
Inner
you?
city living. Their places aren't in Sydney.
Yeah.
And my place is in Rushcutters Bay, so it's very
Oh,
close to the
lovely.
CBD. And it has a lot of small apartments. You know, it's the
Yeah.
most densely populated suburb in Australia. Potts Point, Rushcutters Bay and Elizabeth Bay as one suburb, and because they share the same postcode. It was the one estate at one stage. But anyway, with those, they, you know, I get a lot of family members coming to stay to visit their other family members who live nearby, because the apartments are too small to accommodate them as well. So I think it's a part of city living with that sort of demand for accommodation.
Yeah. And look, in our sort of immediate walking vicinity, there are no hotels. I mean, there's kind of hotels up the other end of Chapel Street, the Olsen, and up near Paran Market, there's a hotel. But, you know, immediately around us, there aren't any. So if people want to be in easy walking distance, then, you know, then they'll stay with us. We also have a small private hospital within walking distance as well. And occasionally we have families come and stay when they've got a family member in the hospital for a procedure or something, and if they live in the country. So
I get that too.
Yeah, there's lots of reasons for people travelling, and I think they like being in something that's just low key and you know, comfortable and no fuss, you know.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. For our listeners who want to come stay at your properties, what's the best way to find you? Oh, do you have a direct link? Do you have an Instagram that you list them? Or are they
Oh
the
no, no,
Airbnb
no, no,
links?
no. We don't do very much marketing at all. But both of the properties they've got similar titles, so they're both on Airbnb. I don't bother with other platforms because I honestly just can't. I tried Booking.com once and it was a nightmare, and it took me hours to even get
Mm.
off it. Like honestly, it was just not for me. So they're both on Airbnb. The one in Melbourne is called Off Chapel Retreat. So that's in Windsor,
Hmm.
in just Melbourne, and then our place in Wye River. I think the Airbnb handle is actually Wye Forest Retreat, but the name of the property is Wye Beach Retreat. I remember because I put it in and I said Wye Forest Retreat, and my husband he said, "Oh, that sounds a bit creepy. I think you should call it Wye Beach Retreat." so, so the
Okay.
handle is
Well,
actually Forest,
we'll put
but
those links in.
but the property is called Wye Beach Retreat. So it's a forest and a beach. You get both for the price of one.
Excellent. We'll put the links to the Airbnb listings in our show notes.
Fabulous, fabulous. It's been so fun
For
talking to
Thank
you
you
both.
so much for your time.
Oh, you're very
Take
welcome. It's been
care.
a pleasure.
Thank you.